Many people imagine that a billionaire's wallet is stuffed with cash, or that it holds nothing but a shiny gold card. But in reality, those who've built real wealth often keep something far more valuable inside. Take Warren Buffett, the legendary billionaire and investor. To this day, he still carries an old, worn-out $20 check in his wallet, and it comes with a story. As a teenager, Buffett earned his first money delivering newspapers and collecting bottles. With his savings, he and a friend bought a used pinball machine for $25 and placed it in a barber shop. The machine quickly started bringing in coins, and before long they expanded into a small network of machines. But the business couldn't withstand competition and organizational problems. When they finally shut it down and sold the machines, each of them walked away with a check for $20. For Buffett, that check became a lifelong reminder. Money is hard to earn, but easy to lose if you don't think strategically. And in another sense, keeping it in his wallet works as more than a lesson in investing. It's also a safeguard against impulsive spending. Buffett is known not only for smart investments, but also for his meticulous frugality. What's remarkable is that this doesn't weigh him down. Every time he opens his wallet, he sees the check and remembers that money spent without purpose never comes back. He often tells his colleagues, "People part with money far too easily. I made that mistake once and I never repeated it." That single sentence reveals the real power of a symbolic object. When you keep something in your wallet that reminds you of an important lesson, it can be more effective than any financial app or investment course. Billionaire Richard Branson, on the other hand, carries a small card in his wallet with the phrase, "Screw it, let's do it." That phrase was born in the late 70s, when Virgin was just starting to grow from a small record shop into a corporation with airlines, studios, and magazines. At the time, people around Branson told him his ideas were crazy, launching an airline with no experience, reaching for space, competing with global giants. But he had a rule: if an opportunity takes your breath away, it's better to try than to spend your life regretting it. That's when he began repeating, "Screw it, let's do it." Over time, the phrase became almost a personal motto. In 2006, he even released a book under that title, where he explained it this way: "The best ideas never come when you sit and overthink. They come when you decide to take a risk and just do it." That's why the card in his wallet serves as a compass for making money. Wherever Branson is, at a business meeting or in the office, he always has a reminder at hand that only risk can bring real financial freedom. Ironically, as the billionaire himself admits, many of his friends saw the card as a joke or just a PR move. But if you look deeper, it becomes clear that an ordinary phrase on a piece of paper, glimpsed several times a day, can reprogram the mind. It stops you from inventing 100 reasons why you shouldn't, and instead pushes you to focus on the one reason why you should. Steve Jobs carried an unusual item in his wallet. It was just a simple $1 bill, but to him it had nothing to do with money. Jobs treated it as an anchor for his thinking. All great things start small. If you look into his biography, many note that as a teenager and even into early adulthood, he was restless, scattered, always chasing too many things at once. The $1 bill he began carrying changed that. The desire for quick success is what destroys 99% of entrepreneurs at the very start. That's why every morning Jobs would take that dollar bill out of his wallet and remind himself, everything must be gradual, small steps toward building a great empire. And in the end, he did build that empire, an empire of such scale and impact that his success still feels almost impossible to match. All of it tied in part to a small piece of paper in his wallet that kept him focused on one simple idea. Another billionaire entrepreneur, Mark Cuban, still carries an old business card in his wallet, and not his own, but the card of his former boss. Back in the 1980s, Cuban worked at a computer store in Dallas. His job was simple: sell hardware off the shelves. But even then, he was thinking bigger. One day at work, instead of sitting behind the counter, He decided to visit a potential client himself and close the deal in person. And he did successfully. The client was happy, but his boss was not. For the boss, the fact that an employee dared to act independently was more threatening than the profit the company had just earned. Cuban was fired on the spot. He was furious, but that moment became a turning point. Left in his wallet was the business card of that very boss, the man who showed him that working for someone else meant being trapped by someone else's rules. For Mark, it became a personal manifesto. I will never let anyone tell me what I can or cannot do. The card wasn't a reminder of failure. It was a symbol of the birth of his freedom. Not long after, Cuban started his first company, Micro Solutions, and proved both to himself and to the world that his instincts were right. Clients matter more than rules, and results matter more than process. When the business grew and was eventually sold for millions, that same old card stayed in his wallet, and it's still there today. The lesson behind it is clear. To Cuban, it's not just a keepsake from his early days of working for someone else. It's a symbol of failure turned into fuel for success. And it's a reminder for all of us. Never overlook your failures, because they're often the very things that push you forward. It's not just male billionaires who keep meaningful items in their wallets. Women do too. In the wallet of Spanx founder Sarah Blakely, you'll find a small scrap of paper with the words, "Trying is winning." At first glance, it was simply a reminder of her father. But in truth, it was a powerful psychological tool for making money and building success. As a child, every evening at dinner, her father didn't ask, "What did you achieve today?" Instead, he asked, "What did you fail at today?" If she hadn't failed at something, it meant the day was wasted. He literally taught her to celebrate mistakes because mistakes meant progress. To make sure she carried that lesson even when he wasn't around, Sarah's father wrote the words, "Trying is winning," on a tiny slip of paper. Later, when Sarah dreamed of becoming a lawyer and failed the LSAT exam multiple times, it was that phrase that kept her from breaking down. Instead of sinking into despair, she looked for new paths. She worked selling fax machines, knocking on doors, collecting hundreds of rejections. But she always carried that little paper in her wallet. She pulled it out on the very day she cut the feet off a pair of pantyhose and came up with the first prototype of Spanx. That note stayed with her through dozens of humiliating rejections from investors who couldn't see the potential in women's seamless hosiery. She later recalled, every time she felt like giving up, the note seemed to wink at her and say, "You've already won because you tried." And that's the real lesson. Most people are so afraid of failure that they never even begin. Sarah, on the other hand, grew up in an environment where failure was treated like a badge of honor. That mindset made her the first self-made female billionaire, building an empire without investors or inheritance. That tiny scrap of paper in her wallet turned out to be worth more than any check or stock certificate. It reminded her that mistakes aren't the enemy. They're the essential companion of every great journey.